Hey, what's everyone? It's Will. I really want to share with you a really cool point that I learned from this book, Mate. Now, I've probably done like a million videos on this, but the reason I've done so many is because I'm a really slow reader. But this point really just blows my mind. There's a lot of points in this book that really just blow your mind about dating and evolutionary biology. And I just think it's interesting all around. Even if you're a female, I think this is just some very interesting stuff on evolutionary biology and why people do what they do and are attracted to what they are attracted to. So let me paint a picture real quick, a quick story to help you relate. So have you ever been in a situation where you did so much to try and appear attractive to a girl, and yet you ended up very frustrated at the end of the day, and you're just so confused because you think that doing something is more attractive to a girl, but then when you do it, it doesn't work. This has happened to me. I remember one time where I really valued hard work ethic, and I assumed that girls did too. So I would work really, really hard, and I would assume that girls would notice, which they noticed me working hard, and yet for the great majority of, I would say 99 to 100% of the time, I never really increased any attractiveness. No girls really appreciated it more. None of them went up to me and said, I really admired that you really, really worked so hard. And if they did, it was a quick compliment, and that was it. And so that was frustrating because I'm like, what the heck? And of course, there's been variations of this as well, looking back on my past. I think probably this has occurred as well when there's this one time, it's occurred numerous times when I tried to really do well at a specific class or a specific skill set that's taught in school, whether it was computer programming or some other course I taught. But one particular class jumps to my mind, and this was this one class I had. It was economics, and it was one of those classes where everyone in the class didn't want to be there, and there's like one attractive girl there who also didn't want to be there, and I think she was blonde, and she didn't care about this class. And I thought that, just being like a superstar at this class would really make a difference. And turned out, didn't make any difference whatsoever. I tried so hard to be really good at this class, and I was like the superstar of the class. And there's some like complicated economic stuff in that was being taught, and I was like on top of it, and no one cared, no one was impressed, and it was a bit frustrating. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that this book actually reveals why that is the case. And it's really interesting and shocking and startling what they uncover. And so, by the way, I'm not some economics whiz. Turns out, funny enough, to just continue that story, there's this one kid in the class who was just he was on a different level than me, but he was always quiet, and he just aced the test. And I talked to him at the end of the class once, and he was just like, he loved it. And I was just like, you're on a completely different level. You can do this much better than me. And I was never really particularly gifted. I simply tried really hard, which is what I usually did. But anyhow, it's just interesting seeing that there's some really gifted people out there. The point is, here's what the book has to say about why it is that, whatever you try and show off, if you're a straight A student or a nerd, or maybe not even a nerd, you're just someone who's trying to show off a specific skill and it's not really working, it's probably because females were not genetically evolved to find that attractive, because it is a skill set that came about too quickly on. I mean, computer programming, that's a very, very recent thing. It's only decades older. And of course, when it's only decades old, I mean, it takes hundreds, if not thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of years for humans to make genetic shifts and favor specific things. So that's one big reason, one big pillar as to why this works. Now, this book breaks this down. They have this whole chapter on this, and they address that issue straight up. They say, if you're someone who got straight A's in school or is really smart, you're probably pretty skeptical when we say that females find intelligence and smarts attractive. Of course they do. They say this in interviews on YouTube. You can look them up. But you're still probably pretty skeptical because you probably got the straight A's in school. You probably worked really hard and you're just, really gifted, but you still didn't get girls. You saw the attractive girls flock to the guys who were muscular, who were athletic, who were rich, or whatever else, high status. And so the book talks about this and says the reason is because these people were intelligent in ways that were evolutionarily attractive and recognizable. And of course, these ways are, as I mentioned, specific different types of intelligence. You see, intelligence is broken down into different forms. There's social intelligence, emotional intelligence, and the list goes on, blah, blah, blah. But there's different types of intelligence, and certain types, academic intelligence, or being great at chess or computer programming, generally, universally speaking, doesn't really, make girls want to drop their panties. Pardon the vulgar expression, but I just want to speak colloquially so you can find interest in this, and so I don't sound like a bookworm. The second thing that I find very interesting, and here's where I kind of disagree with this book. It's not really disagree, I just want to elaborate more. They say that it's simply because of this intelligence that these other people do better, but also it's because scientific study has shown that there's those other traits. Social status in your tribe is one. A second one would be athleticism and V-shaped muscular builds for a male, also very attractive. Status is probably the biggest one. Of course, wealth, as well as other things. So I think those are also traits, and those are also reasons why those people do well, which is probably on some level you probably know internally, or on common sense level you already know. But here's where it kind of moves away from common sense, and it really kind of just opened my eyes. They start talking about the specific types of intelligence that these people do really well, which these people find attractive. And I think the saving grace here, the hope at least, the glimmering, even if it's like a dim lit hope, is that we can improve these forms of intelligence to better ourselves. And the specific forms that they highlight that these people that we see get all the girls seem to do well is they are very good at emotional and general intelligence, which is essentially the ability to read people, read their emotions, understand their emotions, navigate social scenes, and gain popularity and status among a group while solving problems for that tribe. And of course, there's very specific examples they give in this book, such as, let's say, a Marine. A Marine is really good at using his intelligence to pass rigorous training and survive real-world high-stress challenges, such as facing armed felons, enemy IEDs, toxic chemical fires, blah, blah, blah. Again, I mean, I hate to be one of those haters who disagree, but I mean, are Marines really that attractive? But nonetheless, I do think the point in general is just, which is that there are different forms of intelligence, and it really required a shift for me So let's just get into specific detail. You're probably wondering, just list out all the different forms. So I will. 1, social intelligence. 2, emotional intelligence. 3, verbal intelligence. 4, practical intelligence. 5, mating intelligence. And 6, academic intelligence. And of course, that last one is the one that you should you shouldn't avoid improving, but it's not going to help you directly with girls. Which I think it's a bit of a tragedy, because I do think that we do have free will in a way, and consciously people should be aware that certain factors, whether it's a hard work ethic or incredible skill or talent at a specific thing like programming or whatever it is, public speaking, chess, is valuable. But what this book is saying, that women work on a very unconscious genetic level, and all those genetics have been programmed after thousands of years. So on one part, you're kind of thinking, or I'm thinking, it kind of sucks that these girls don't consciously think about this. But then when you think about it, like most girls, they're never really told, you know what, you should really value someone who really works hard because they're going to be successful, or you should really value someone who can do this or that, and therefore they don't, even if that does lead to a man who is successful. But nonetheless, I think the big message, if you take nothing else from this, is to improve those other forms. There's verbal intelligence, social intelligence, emotional intelligence. Those are the big 3. And of course, there's plenty of videos and articles from other people on YouTube, on Google, on different websites on how to improve these. In fact, there's books written about these, specifically emotional intelligence. That's the big one. And there's even a book called, if you really want to just have a list of tips that you can trust, because there's a bunch of like generic articles online and you don't know if you can trust them, on improving emotional intelligence. There's this book that's literally titled How to Improve Your Child's Emotional Intelligence. It's written by a PhD. You can look to him, read that, and it'll help. And I think another part of just improving this is actually demonstrating this. And I think this is something that most people get wrong. You can have the best product in the world, but if you don't market it or tell people about it, no one knows about it. And if no one knows about it, how can they buy it? You can be this super emotionally intelligent guy, but if you never talk to people and show that off, or at least demonstrate it in some way, if you just hole up in your house and you never go outside, it's effectively just as useless as not even having it. So verbal intelligence and social intelligence and practical intelligence, I think these are things that of course I need to improve, but maybe you do too. And these are also things that you probably have the big question mark on. How do you improve these? What are they? And of course this book briefly touches on them, but I just want to give a bit more depth on maybe social intelligence and the others. So SI, social intelligence. Here's a specific example. Let's say you're being bullied in school. The unsocially intelligent response, again, I wish I knew this when I was young, and the unintelligent response to being bullied, let's say you're being picked on for being really crappy at sports, and specifically soccer, and some kid comes up to you and like tries to enforce his status or whatever, and he's like, you suck at soccer, you're this overweight kid, and they start picking on your weight. Now the socially intelligent response would be something that I think is just genius, and I learned this from this PhD who did a whole lecture on this. The unsocially intelligent response is what I would have done naturally, which was just like hide away, run away, and take it. But here's what an example of social intelligence. So instead, what you say is, you know what? I do suck at soccer, but I'm really good at art. In fact, if you tell me to draw anything, I can draw it really well. But you're really good at soccer. Man, I wish I could be as good as you one day. Now, what's happened here? Let's break it down structurally. First, they've acknowledged and agreed with the person. Second, okay, so that kind of plays off consistency and commitment bias and agreeableness bias. Then they've gone on to offer value, demonstrate value. I might not be good at this, I might be overweight, but I am good at art and I could provide a lot of value in that. And then they make sure not to dwell on that too much, because then it seems like you're showing off, and they quickly move towards what the last part, which is probably the most important, which is flattering that person's ego, making them feel good, impressing them, complimenting them. And they did that by simply saying, but you're really good at this. And then showing admiration and showing that you look up to this person as a role model. I wish I could be as good as you one day. Boom, that person, that bully, 5 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10 will be like, whoa, you know what? You're actually not that bad of a kid. Then he'll put your arm around you, and then all of a sudden you've befriended the bully. And this is the type of social intelligence stuff that people had to do so that the kings would not behead you, because back in the medieval times and the hunter-gatherer times, it was more about bias and favoritism rather than who's right or wrong. And you had to do what you could to survive, especially with kings and rulers and emperors and tyrannical people who on a whim could just decide to kill you because they had a bad morning, a bad breakfast, whatever it was, and you slightly pissed them off. So that's kind of why social intelligence developed, in at least one of the reasons. And of course, you can see the power of that. Of course, I really suck at this, but I think that PhD guy, he really just did a great talk and great example of it. And I just wanted to demonstrate that to you. Another great book on social intelligence is Mastery by Robert Greene. Let's move on to, I'm going to skip EI, emotional intelligence, or EQ, because there's articles, countless articles and books on that. Verbal intelligence, VI. So this one's kind of weird. I thought this was the same thing as social intelligence, but they use the example of Bill Clinton, who a lot of people consider him the sexiest guy on the planet because of his verbal fluency and his ability to just be a magnet towards people. And one of the things that a lot of people say he does really well is when he talks to you, he makes you think that you're the only person in the room and the most important. That's something that I've tried to implement into my own repertoire, but it's I don't get that many chances, and I don't know if it's really working. I mean, I've tried it, and I've really tried to really focus and be attentive, but I haven't really seen any difference. However, if you want to improve your verbal intelligence, again, just pick up the book if you want more details. But the book basically just says it's about telling good stories, carrying on an exciting conversation, pillow talk, small talk, all that stuff. I think what you should do is, and again, the book does reference this in a different chapter, put yourself in situations where you can be socially fluent. Talk, practice, and push your comfort zone. And one way is to get jobs that do that, whether it's hostess or a interviewer or a receptionist or just something where you have to talk a lot, or maybe in your free time, whatever it is. And another big thing I found is that it's important to kind of keep track, have some level of goal, and so that you can measure it, because otherwise you can like read all this stuff and then like you could just like go out there or not really think about it and not know if you've improved or even used anything from this, which is something I'm guilty of. 4, practical intelligence. This one's also interesting. This is about actually being practical in a way where you can help yourself survive, find your way, and not die. It's kind of like, it's pretty much street smarts. And I think this is probably the most underrated and yet most important or highly effective form of intelligence. And just think about it. Like, there's tons of book nerds that you probably know, that I know, and of course they're great in a classroom, but they're like literally rocks incapable of surviving when they are out in the real world. They can't read a map. They can't do anything. They're cumbersome to deal with. And of course, you can kind of understand why that would be unattractive to anyone. And this form, of course, can be improved by just putting yourself out in situations. So, for example, I went and traveled on my own numerous times and pushed my comfort zone and really went to different countries or different places that took a real long time to drive to, 30 plus minutes, an hour. And long story short, I had to learn how to read maps, how to navigate with people, how to ask people for directions politely, and all this stuff. And it was more about you had to do this or you remain lost because the battery on your phone was about to die. And you don't have to put yourself in strenuous situations that are life or death or really stressful, but by pushing your comfort zone and actually trying out these things, you can develop that skill, because there's a difference between skill and talent. Skill can be obtained through practice. Now this video is already 20 minutes long and I don't want to get too in depth. Of course, I'm the first to admit that this book is not perfect, and no one's perfect. There are certain things that I think this book leaves unfulfilled, but generally speaking, I think this is an incredibly great book, probably one of the best of its kind on dating advice for men and self-improvement on a science-based, data-driven level where you can trust. And it goes beyond common sense. I highly recommend you pick this book up at your library, or you can buy it off Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. If you go through my link, I get a commission at no extra cost to you if you buy off Amazon using my link. But I really think this book is not just helpful for men looking to improve their dating lives, but improve their success in general. And one of the reasons is because they're interrelated. They're deeply interrelated. A lot of the things that you're looking to improve in personal development is also something that benefits you in terms of your dating life. Whether it's your status, your focus, your attentiveness, your various forms of intelligence, so on and so forth. Check this book out. It's pretty cool. And once you do, and once you read the chapter, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks, and I'm signing off.